Hello, everybody. Welcome to the YINZER Brothers podcast. I'm TJ. I'm here with my brother Tim. And today we have a very special guest, Mr. DERRICK GUNN. Some of you may remember DERRICK GUNN if you're from the Pittsburgh area. Back in the day, he was a Pittsburgh reporter for us. He was amazing. And then after that, he moved to the Eagles. He's been doing the Eagles stuff for how many years have you been doing the Eagles stuff now, DERRICK?
Over 25 years now.
25 years. So when you were in Pittsburgh, I was just, I was a youngin'. Was that in the 80s you were in Pittsburgh?
Let me tell you something. You're not that much younger than me. Don't try to pull that. You're not that. No, I was there from 87 to 97. Yeah,
87
I was
to 97.
WPXI.
You could have possibly done some highlights for one of my high school football games. I mean, we may have been on once. Wasn't very good, but you may have done something, right?
There's a possibility. I mean, who did you play for?
Gateway.
There's a possibility.
I know he definitely did ours because we played in 80. When was it? 87, 88? It had to be 87. We played North Hills down at Three River Stadium for the championship. I was on that team. I was on that field.
We used to do Friday night skylights. So we used to do 10, 12 games a week. And we did highlights from all the championship games and stuff. So I would say definitely, we did your schools.
We beat North Hills. They were number one in the nation. We beat them 7-6. Three River Stadium. And we were 13th in the nation. They were first. We ended up finished third in the nation. Now, Tim can't talk about that about his teams because their teams were bad. They were, not like Michael Jackson bad either. They were just bad.
How did you two go to two different high schools?
Well, we were 9 years apart. So by the time we went there.
Oh, man, don't do that, Derek. Come on, man. You could look at the screen and please say we're 9 years apart.
I don't know, man. I thought you were twins for a moment.
Oh. Thank you, Derek. Thank you. Well, it's the hair. Tim doesn't have any hair. That's the problem. He doesn't have any hair. Tim lost hair when he was in his. When did your hair start going south, Tim?
That's nobody's business that we need to put this on the airways to.
That's true.
I think it 20s, maybe 20s. I think.
Yeah, I remember.
Wow.
I made a life decision one night. Had a little bit too much to drink, and that life decision just never.
You cut it all off.
My hair back.
Never came back. I still remember your niece, Tori Harris, looking at you when you were trying to grow your hair back, and she looked at you. And she goes, "Uncle Tim, what happened to your head?" And then from then on, you went chrome the rest of the time.
I mean, stuff like that just burns into your skull forever.
It burns into your soul. It crushes your soul, Tim.
Yeah.
So some of you in Pittsburgh, you may remember Derrick. Derrick's on the podcast tonight. He's going to give us all the intel we need from the Eagles. For those of you who don't know, we play the Eagles this week. The Eagles are undefeated, and the Steelers pretty much we're on the struggle bus. I'm just going to say that right now. We're on the struggle bus. It's still early. And I haven't given up total hope yet, but we're on the struggle bus. So, Derrick, welcome. You're going to give us some insight on the undefeated Eagles. I don't know, Derrick, have you been following the Steelers at all this year?
Yes, a little bit. I've seen them play a couple of times, and hopefully I don't have to see them play again.
You know what, Derrick? Now, a lot of Pittsburgh fans feel the exact same way.
Derrick, the question I have, the one question out of anything, it's like you've seen them. And the only thing that I'm kind of worried about, coming from, I have these kind of lenses on right now. Is Kenny a dude? Is he a dude, or is he not? Is he not? Or am I just? Please tell me he's a dude.
Who? Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, tell me he's a dude. Tell me
is he going to be our future? Is he? Do you think? What do you think he's going to be, Derrick?
I think it depends on the type of grooming he gets. Basically, they're throwing him in there like a sacrificial lamb right now. I mean, that's understandable. A lot of young quarterbacks have that. The Steelers don't have the offensive line they used to have. I think Pickett would be better if that offensive line was a little bit stronger. But I also think the organization has sent the wrong message to him by throwing him in there the way they did. It was at halftime of a game when Tomlin decided, to go from Trubisky to Pickett. Basically, you're telling the team you've conceded, at that point. Pickett has potential. It's going to take some time. They say it usually takes a quarterback almost 3 years to get the it factor. That's when you really find out what he is or is not in that third year. Now, some develop a little bit quicker, some don't. I mean, you look at the Josh Allen of Buffalo. Took him 3 years to get it right. But you look at him now, he's lights out. And you saw that last year. You made that transition from 2020 to 2021. It was by leaps and bounds. Could that happen for Pickett? Absolutely. If they keep the collection of receivers that he has, I mean, you guys got a nice collection of receivers. You got to rebuild that offensive line. You got a great running back in Najee Harris. You got a battering ram back there for a running back, but it's all predicated on the guys blocking for him up front. But this is going to be a good learning curve for him. Now, when you go back to the last game they played against Miami, they very easily could have won that game. I mean, the defense dropped 3 picks, and then he leads them down the field, and he throws the miscue at the goal line, which cost you the game. Could have been 17-16 at that point. Don't know if the receiver ran the wrong route or he just anticipated too soon where he wanted to go with it. But, you know, those are the things, those are the growing pains a young quarterback has to go through. I would say don't get discouraged now. It's going to be a long, rough road for him now. But the lumps he takes now will only benefit him for next year.
How much, in your opinion, I mean, the big talk in Pittsburgh is the offensive coordinator. The offensive, it looks, when you look at that offense, it looks like, I told my brothers in the previous, it looks like they're running the wing T. It looks like a high school offense. So, I mean,
that was a great offense back in '87. Gateway, we ran that sucker. We ran that sucker hard, baby.
I mean, he looks like he's running waggle right and waggle. I've never seen anything that elementary. It's like, well, is his growth going to be? Do they have to do something mid-season? You know, if with the, it's not the Steeler way to just get rid of coordinators or people in the middle of the season, but is the more he has Canada leading him, is that going to damper his growth to the point where it could hurt him for the next person in line? You know, that could be his OC.
Yeah, it could. It could. And the one thing I know about the Steelers organization and the Rooney family, having covered that team, is they're not an organization that fires coaches in mid-season. They're not about to let a coach sit at home and collect pay if he's not doing his job. So for better or worse, you're going to be stuck with him for the rest of this season. Now, there's a possibility, a good possibility, you could have a change in OC after this year. But it could stagnate Pickett's growth for this year. But if you get the right guy next year, he could accelerate by way of off-season workouts, film study, the OTAs, the mini camps, and training camp. If you get him in the right system, if you get an OC that can thoroughly identify his strengths versus his weaknesses. A prime example, you look at a Daniel Jones in New York. Now, he's a first-round draft pick, been marginal at best throughout his career. All of a sudden, a brilliant offensive mind like a Brian Daboll comes in. You saw what Brian Daboll did with that Buffalo offense. Now, by no stretch of the imagination is Daniel Jones the equivalent of Josh Allen in Buffalo. But what Daniel Jones has become right now, which he has not been in the previous years of his career, has been efficient. He doesn't turn the ball over. If you look at the creativity of that offense with the Giants are running now, very similar to what Buffalo did, they're calling plays for Daniel Jones to take off and run. And you see that a lot across the NFL right now. You have a lot of these so-called hybrid quarterbacks who have designed running plays for them. That is Daniel Jones' strength, tucking the ball and taking off. He has a strong arm. He just hasn't been very accurate. Well, guess what? He's more accurate this year. He's more comfortable in this system. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, he's a big part of the reason why the Giants are sitting at 6-1. So if you get that OC who can come in there and look at the film and study Kenny Pickett and understand what makes him tick and get him back to what the quarterback was coming out of college, you got yourself a diamond in the rough. But you have to go through those growing pains like every team does.
I think I could probably start a GoFundMe to funnel that money to pay off Canada with the Steeler fans at this point right now.
Or put a contract out on them.
That's right.
The Roonies,
the Yinzers would step up. They would step up for that. They would do that. So give us an idea now, Derrick. So you guys got, I mean, you got Jalen Hurts, who's there now, and I know that they were kind of deciding, who, you go from Carson and all the stuff about, talk about his, how he's started to rise. I mean, he looks pretty rock solid right now. I mean, do you see some parallels? What did they do with him that maybe we could do with Kenny?
Well, he's had two head coaches in 2 years, his first 2 years in the league. He went from Doug Peterson to now Nick Sirianni. And Nick Sirianni came in here, made his system more quarterback friendly. Now, obviously, he didn't get a lot of chances when Carson was here because Carson was still deemed that so-called franchise quarterback before things began to unravel for him. But Nick Sirianni inherits this guy. He looks at his playbook and he streamlined the playbook to play to his strengths, you know. And of course, that first year, last year, he had the highs and the lows, you know. And as we sat here this entire offseason and we questioned, could he stay in the pocket and not be skittish like a rabbit being flushed out of the brush? Because at times he took off too soon, didn't let the play unfold, took off too soon, missed the wide open receivers, threw the ball inaccurately. Didn't trust what he was seeing downfield, didn't go through his progressions enough. So what happened in the offseason, after 1 year under Sirianni, he goes out west and works under one of the so-called quarterback guru coaches on the West Coast. He's in the film room. They streamlined the playbook a little bit even more so to play to his strength. You look at how he runs these RPOs now. You know, they're utilizing all of his athleticism, his film study, his work ethic, and because of the way they've adjusted the playbook, through the first 6 games of the season, he has checked off all the questions that lingered about him. Can he stay in the pocket? Yes. Can he throw more accurately? Yes. Can he go through his progressions better? Yes. Can he throw the deep ball when he has to? Yes. So you had the right coaches around him with Shane Steichen, the offensive coordinator, and Nick Sirianni, an offensive-minded coach, who worked with him. They talked a lot. They worked on a lot of different things. He put in a lot of extra time, and he's reaping the benefits of that now. And like that's why I said the similar thing could happen. Even if Tomlin stays there beyond this year, similar thing could happen if Tomlin and that organization hire the right OC. Jalen Hurts is lights out better than he was just a year ago. 1 year has made such a tremendous transformation. Now, obviously, they've surrounded him on both sides of the football with tremendous talent, but if the quarterback doesn't drive the engine, the car is not going anywhere. And he's driving that engine perfectly right now.
So give us an idea then. You're on the inside track with the Eagles. You've been, they're undefeated. What are some of the strengths you think right now? If you look at the Eagles offense and the Eagles defense, give us an idea. I know you guys just picked up another defensive end from the Bears, right?
Yeah, Robert
Give us
Quinn.
an idea of how you're positioned, what you think the strengths of the team are. And, then maybe we'll talk about, you can give us the keys into taking out the Eagles and shocking the world. Not sure it's going to happen, but maybe it could happen.
And I will say this:
right.
I'm beginning to think your GM is some type of wizard or he has some type of potion when he's dealing with other GMs in this league. Because some of the stuff that he's pulling off, draft capital,
fleecing organizations.
It's insane. I'm going. It's almost Madden. It's almost Madden-like when you're making stuff up. And I'm kind of like, how is this continuing to? And I'm sure that's part of how they're building. They built that, it is how they built that monster of a team, which I think, to me, I know you'll talk about it. I think in the trenches, they are at least offensive line best in the league and defensive line one of the top 5 in the league. And I think that's pretty much a reasoning why they're undefeated. So, but I'll let you kind of talk about that.
Yeah, you look at a Howie Roseman situation, and just 2 years ago, people wanted to run him out of town on the quickest train possible because his drafts have been so inconsistent. Well, Howie finally started listening to people around him, and he was on one of the shows I co-host is called Sports Take for the Jacob Sports Media YouTube channel. We had him on back in May, and he said in 2021, he said his owner, Jeffrey Lurie, and his grandfather kept asking him, why do you not draft more players from the SEC, which obviously is the biggest feeding pool into the National Football League. So lo and behold, all those years he was drafting players, he would always neglect the SEC. But in 2021, he started drafting more and more players from the SEC and their conference, and they have been a big benefactor behind that. Howie is one of the best in the game in terms of wheeling and dealing and maneuvering under the salary cap to get what he wants. You look at what they did this offseason. This was a team, the only reason they got into the playoffs last year is because the league expanded the playoff format from 6 to 7 teams. They get into the last team. They got the butts kicked by Tampa Bay. But that was a great learning tool, not just for the players, but for the organization in terms of what we need to get better. They go out in the offseason, they bring in Hassan Reddick, who had 23.5 quarterback sacks in his 2 previous seasons, okay? Then all of a sudden they pull the steal of the draft. They get A.J. Brown from Tennessee. And it kept going from there. They get James Bradbury, who was on the outs with the Giants. They bring in C.J. Gardner-Johnson from New Orleans, who is a great corner, but they have him playing safety now because they have 2 lockdown corners in both Darius Slay and James Bradbury. So he kept adding the right pieces to the Kazir White they bring in from the Chargers, so on and so forth. How he's been able to get all this under the cap is just blows us away here. But lo and behold, I think when you look at some point, how he identified that instead of just continuing to build for the future, we have the nucleus that could make a push and make some noise now. And when you look at how mediocre it is across the NFC right now, adding Robert Quinn yesterday, they needed another edge rusher. But when you talk about the strengths and weaknesses, let's start with the offense. They have one of the top 2 or 3 offensive lines in the NFL, and not just because of the front 5. They have some of the best rotation in the game today. Their second-tier guys would start on a lot of teams. They do a great job of identifying offensive linemen in the middle to later rounds, and you have one of the best offensive line coaches in Jeff Stoutland in the game. But, matter of fact, he might be the best offensive line coach in the game. They drafted Devontae Smith. They developed a young wide receiver, one of the fastest kids in the league named Quez Watkins. And they have a nice young trio of backs. They don't put a lot of money into backs, but what they find are backs that are conducive to the system they're running. There's not a weak link on that offense right now. Dallas Goedert's one of the best tight ends in the game. The only thing they're susceptible to on defense at times is the run. They give up chunks of real estate in the running game. It's like they're rock solid for the first quarter and a half. All of a sudden, by the third quarter, it's like they're discombobulated. For whatever reason, that's been their MO all year. In terms of their secondary, right now, according to Pro Football Focus, Bradbury and Slay are 1 and 2 in terms of defending the pass, both under 43% completion allowed by quarterbacks. You can't ask for more than that. They have one of the best slot corners in the game in Devontae Maddox. There's very few weak links on this team. And even when the offense bogs down, the weird thing is the defense gives up chunks of real estate, both in the running game and the passing game in the third quarter, and this offense doesn't score points in the third quarter. But they blow people away in the second quarter in terms of scoring points, far ahead of anybody else in the National Football League when they blow it open in the second quarter. And it's almost like they go to cruise control in the third quarter, and then in the fourth quarter, they finally wake up and put you away. No team has been able to stop their running game this year. When they feel like they want to run the football, they run the football. And it doesn't make a difference who's in the backfield. Their zone blocking scheme is impeccable in terms of how they run that scheme. I don't mean to put a damper on your team.
Don't worry, Derrick. You haven't put a damper on anything just yet.
I don't mean to put a damper on your team, but
I was sad beforehand, before this started. Now I might as well just go strip naked and just walk out in my yard and just get arrested, spend the night in the box. I don't know.
But here's a ray of glimmer for you. The Steelers won a game 20-18 2 weeks ago. They should have beat Miami, and Miami has a very good defense. They should have beat Miami. Young quarterback made a mistake. So it shows that they can go toe-to-toe with teams. They just haven't been able to finish, so I don't think they're going to come in here and get blown out. I think it's going to be a close game, for a number of reasons. This Eagles team seems to go to sleep at times when they shouldn't, but they're also a very explosive team as well. They lead the league in turnovers as well. But I tell you this much: they're coming after Kenny Pickett. They're gonna come at, now that Robert Quinn is here. They're coming after Kenny Pickett. They have 17 quarterback sacks in 6 games, but it's somewhat misleading because they got 9 against Carson Wentz in Washington a few weeks ago. So they have 8 sacks in 5 other games. So they're not a very potent front 4 in terms of putting pressure on the quarterback. But they'll send that blitz every now and then. And they feast on young, inexperienced quarterbacks. And unfortunately, that's what you have under center for you guys right now.
We check all those boxes, Derrick. We check young, inexperienced, all that stuff. That's great news, Derrick. Thank you.
Hey, let me tell you something. Let me tell you, you think you guys are depressed? Now, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so I'm a Packers fan also. You think you're depressed? You see this mess I have to watch coming out of Green Bay? I don't want to hear about your depression. I have no sympathy for you.
When he had them mushrooms, that screwed him up.
We got somebody calling plays that I swear I was playing against a 15-year-old on the Xbox, and that may have been Canada trying to come up with the game plan for this week.
Oh man.
At least up there, you've seen it with that offense before. Here, it's something's wrong when I'm a buffoon and I'm an idiot and I'm watching the game and I can see what they're doing before it happens. It just doesn't. If I can see that and I'm a buffoon, I know that it just doesn't. It's tough to hear them always say the big we're close. I'm like, you're not close. We're 7 weeks into the season. Yeah. It's oh man, the whole thing this is gonna be a fun weekend. Can't wait.
but you never know because Derrick, you're right. I mean, we did play Buffalo, and Buffalo, they beat the fire out of us. Yeah. But the Steelers do rise at weird times. And every time I'm getting ready to just say, no, I'm done this year, they suck me back in because they do something and it's just they check a box or something like that. And then they reel me back in.
But here's the thing. I get that too. And I'm thinking, hey, we beat Tampa. We're going to be back on the thing. And then you see Tampa, they stink too. So it's kind of like one of those things like.
It's Tom Brady. It's that lady she got in his head. At some point in time, I think Tom Brady is the robot. They're going to take the skin off the robot he's in now and put it over another robot. So I think by couple of weeks,
when you talk about Tampa Bay, there has not been a more decimated team by way of injuries. Maybe the Giants are close second, but you look at what they didn't have Cameron Brate tonight. They were down 2 or 3 of their secondary people, one of their offensive linemen. I mean, this team is beat up. Now, Tom Brady obviously is distracted by what's going on outside of football, but they can't put a healthy team on the field to save their lives right now. And I'm shocked that as we sit here now, they're lead Baltimore. The last time I checked, you know what? It's just one of those things, man. Mm-hmm. You get it in waves, man. You get to a point where you have so much success, you get spoiled after a while. And, Pittsburgh was spoiled. They had Ben Roethlisberger for 20 years? Yeah. Okay. You got spoiled. Eventually, there has to be a changing of the guard. And it's not easy to watch, man. You got to sit there on your hands and bite your lip and say things under your breath that are not in the dictionary. And, it gets to you after a while. It does, because you can't wait for football to get here. It's once a week. You get that adrenaline pumping. You can't wait to see your team get out there. But then you get a team like Steelers, Houston, Chicago, and you
I never thought we would be in the same.
We're in that same sentence, Tim. Can you put us in the same sentence?
And that's something. And you sit there going, I just hope they make us proud by making a good showing today. That's all I can hope for.
Yeah. You know what I think too, and honestly, we had Ben for all those years, but I think the 1 year where Ben was injured, was out the whole year, and Tomlin was able to drag that ragtag bunch to a 500 record.
The Duck and Mason.
You kind of go in the back of your mind. I think people are thinking, if he was able to do it, those guys who were they weren't not good. One guy got cut from the CFL in Mason. I still don't know if he knows where his face mask is. But like, you saw them go 500 with that, and you're kind of saying, well, you're almost expecting that. And I don't think people are realizing that year was the defense was ridiculous, and it was a hell of a coaching job. I mean, it was. Right. So I get what you're saying, but man, this is to be in that breath with the Chicagos, especially I'm in Chicago right now living.
Right.
And I've seen how these people, you go to work every Monday morning and half the people are mumbling to themselves because their team stinks so bad. So it's one of those things. I don't want to. I'm usually the one rubbing it into them. I don't want to be in misery with them.
Here's the best thing I can tell you. If you have a list of honeydew chores to do this Sunday, you might want to tap into some of them as a diversion. Don't be the guy who sits glued in front of the TV set from start to finish, because then you may need therapy on Monday. Find a distraction. Find something that can get you up out of the chair. If you miss a play or two, so what? You got DVR. If it's a great Steelers play, you can roll it back for a few seconds to look at. If it's not, then you haven't missed anything. If you keep hearing the words Eagles touchdown, then you haven't missed anything, right? And so I say find something. I don't know if you paint. I don't know if you sculpt. Whatever you do, you might want to tap into some of that stuff this weekend as a diversion for what possibly could happen.
You know what he does, Derek?
My tap,
he eats, Derek.
My
he
tap.
Eats. That's what he does.
Yes, I get sad. I eat. My tap in is the Steelers. That's the thing that sucks. Like all this talking, when I see your Eagles touchdown, it's like that. Yeah. Another article of clothing will come off me, or I'll have to be changing positions in my house to think I'm the one that's
causing the pain.
Causing the pain.
It's you. You're screwing it up. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
See, at the rate you're going, you may be on some psychiatrist's couch by the end of the season. That's not good. See.
So I want to maybe Derrick can help us with something. Now, Derrick, my brother, you are around NFL football players, right?
Yeah.
You see them, you see what's going on. My brother believes now. He believes in his heart of hearts, that he has not one, not two, not three, but 4 plays in the NFL. He thinks he could play.
Let's
plays in the NFL.
Let's curve this thing. I'm not talking about being a running back or playing defensive back or making a tackle. My 4 plays consist of maybe quarterback just taking a knee, maybe holding for a field goal. I'm not going to be down to running kicks, but there are some guys.
Tim, but what part? Let's say you're now, Tim. Tell Derrick. I mean, how many good shoulders and good knees do you have?
I got one good shoulder.
Is that your right or your left shoulder?
My good shoulder is my left shoulder.
Are you right-handed or left-handed?
Potentially right-handed.
So what are you gonna do if you QB and you fumble the ball? You can't throw it. What are you gonna do?
I'm sorry. I watched Devin Bush play all last year, looking like he was an unplugged joystick on a video game. I know I can do that. I know I can do that.
Now, see, you know what? How tall are you? How tall are you, Tim?
I'm about 6 foot, give or take. Inch or two.
How much do you weigh? How much do you weigh?
Now?
Yeah.
Now?
Yeah.
I like to fluctuate between, I'd say 228 and 240.
When was the last time you lifted weights?
Oh, I lift.
He
5
does
days
the bands, right? You do bands, right?
I'm not talking about lifting hoagies or lifting. I'm talking about when have you lifted weights?
No. I right now, because I'm at the house, I do bands. So I'm at work, I will lift at the weight room and I will do weights. Nothing crazy. I'm not. I used to probably 10 years ago go. That's why I had to have the shoulder because I had the weights.
I think your best bet is to live through that dream vicariously, that you could actually get back out on the football field. When you look at these specimens today, and a prime example, the Eagles' first-round draft pick, kid named Jordan Davis, 6'6", 340 pounds, ran a 4.5 40 at the combine. Okay,
I'm not going to be doing Oklahomas with him. I mean,
but he might run over you trying to get to the ball carrier, and all of a sudden you're laying there like roadkill, and you can't feel anything from your neck down. See, you see what I'm saying?
But what if I'm doing like to take the knee, like we're doing the victory formation?
You might get hurt doing that. You got bad knees, man.
He does.
He won't even be able to get up out of his stance from the victory formation. Are you kidding me?
Testify. That's right. Testify. That's right.
It would take me about 3 hours of stretching beforehand to really get into that victory formation. But I think I can get 4 plays.
See, you're one of those guys who I like to put in the category of the mind says go and the body says no. Listen to your body. Your better days are behind you. I hate to say, I don't want to kill your dream. You know, every man has a field of dreams, but you should plow those flowers under real quick, brother.
You have been just putting you put a cloud over my head this whole entire podcast for my team.
Look, man,
to my 4 plays.
Look, you know what? Your brother said at the top of this podcast, he says, you know, Derrick is going to be honest and I want your honesty and insight. I didn't know we were going to veer off into a man who's past his athletic prime, who still thinks he can get out there among these behemoths who run like gazelles with violent collisions every down. And that's why the injury statistics go up every year, because these guys get bigger and stronger. The field stays the same. It doesn't go any wider, and the collisions are more violent than ever. I'm not here to kill your dream. I'm just here to give you a little spectrum of reality that you are a man with a family and your children want to see you get to your ripe old age. So all I'm here to do is So I'm here to do for you.
He's saving your life, Tim. He's saving your life, Tim.
What if I had a crumble cookie in my hand and I threw it?
Yeah.
And I said, "Get that delicious cookie," and then I took a snap and just took a knee. I think
that would happen. Hey, Derrick, let me ask you a question. I had somebody throw something out, and I think it's interesting, and I'd love to hear your insight on this.
Yeah.
It seems like concussions are on the rise.
Mm-hmm.
Now, somebody made an observation that they had just changed a bunch of the helmet designs this year. I don't know if that's true or not. What do you attribute to the rise in concussions that we're experiencing right now?
What I just talked about, these guys are faster, stronger. The collisions are more violent. They're always doing studies on a helmet and ways to improve the helmets, and they make changes to the helmets annually to try to lower the concussion risk. I mean, you look at some of the things they've done to the game to try to reduce that. The kickoffs in particular, there's fewer and fewer returns because kickoffs is where a lot of these concussions occur. But because these specimens are just unbelievably fast and strong, you still have a significant number. Now, you saw what happened to Tua. He gets a concussion, although he tried to pull it was my back, him and the organization.
It's crazy.
Now, you don't stumble like that if it's your back. The first thing you do is grab for your back. I've had my back seized up. I know that's like. You don't just wobble like that and not tell me it's a concussion, and then 4 days later get another one. To the point the NFL changed the concussion protocol early in the season again. Okay, so they're doing everything they can possibly do to protect players from themselves. I don't think you're ever going to diminish the concussion syndrome in the NFL because of the violent nature of the game. Even with the quarterbacks, they've reduced it to flag football when it comes to tackling the quarterback. But these guys, you can't help it. It's the nature of the beast. It's what you decided to do for your life. And that's why you're starting to see more and more players retire at an earlier age, because they talk about a quality of life. They want to be able to walk and talk and run with their kids. You look at I think one of the biggest tragedies we've seen is like an Earl Campbell. You look at what Earl Campbell was to the NFL, and you look at how many carries he had a year. Look at the violent nature of the collisions he has. Right now, Earl Campbell, as an older man, he can't stand up without a cane. He can't go outside without having dark sunglasses on because he'll get migraine headaches. And a lot of players are afraid of that now, and that's happening. You look at what CTE has done to a lot of players. It has cost a lot of players their lives at a young age. It has debilitated a lot of players in a lot of ways. You're never going to eliminate the word concussion unless you go to two-handed flag football in the NFL. It's never going to diminish.
Do you think? I know in the preseason they were using those Guardian caps. Do you ever think we'll see a scenario where they'll be using them in the regular season I mean, from what I get, the studies, maybe 20% or 25% less in a concussion. I mean, is that something that they may look forward in the future to kind of go to kind of hopefully lessen the concussions? But I mean,
it's a slim possibility, but it also has to be agreed upon with the NFL Players Association as well as the league office. And I don't know if the players, as strange as it sounds when we keep talking about protecting players better, I don't know if the players want to go out there with those bubbles on their heads. I really don't. It doesn't add any more weight to the helmet, but I don't know if they would go for that right away. I think
why is that? I mean,
I don't know. I don't. I mean, because we had players that were supposed to wear them and didn't wear them in training camps, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. You're in a training camp setting. It's according to the studies, it will help reduce your possibility of a concussion. And players were hemming and hawing and griping about wearing them in training camps. Now it got to a point where it was mandatory for offensive and defensive linemen to wear them this training camp. And guys tried to make light of it, and some of them still didn't do it the whole training session. But so I don't know. If it's mandated that you have to wear them, with a caveat attached to it that if you don't wear it, if you step on the field and you don't have it on, you'll be fined X amount of dollars. I think that's how you get players' attention. Let's face it. In a profession where your lifespan is less than 4 years, and players are trying to make all they can while they can, because the money's not guaranteed like it is in baseball, basketball, and hockey, you don't want to give anything back to a league office, And I think that's the best way to get players' attention is if you attach a fine to it if they him and haw about doing it and come out of a locker room without wearing one.
Could you see something in the future in a day where they do, say, hey, you got to wear the Guardians, or suggest you got to wear the Guardians, and franchises try to put that in front-loaded contracts with players to say, hey, you need to wear this, or if you get concussion XYZ, we're not held liable. We can take whatever money we gave you up front or loaded that contract and kind of pull it back. I mean, do you see any type of thing that could possibly happen? Yeah, but again, my guess would probably have to go through the Players Association to even do anything of this sort.
Yeah, that's a good question. And, depending on how far the league wants to take this thing, they can put whatever they want. If it's mandated that you have to wear them, sure, you can put anything in a contract. If you buckle the system and don't wear it, we don't have to pay you. It's just like if you step outside of our company policies and what we expect of you as a professional in our workplace, we don't have to pay you. You look at how many players know this for a fact. They still get picked up for DUIs, domestic violence, illegally carrying guns, driving under the influence, driving with suspended licenses, getting in bar fights. All of these things are well known by players, and yet every year we have stories about stuff like this happening. So football players are a different breed. They're told from the time they're little that you are above everyone else. When you get in trouble, don't worry, we'll get you out of trouble. But I think, these guys are going to have to grow up in a hurry. The game is getting more violent every year. And we always talk about how you have to start protecting players from themselves. They are these gladiators, and once a week they get to let out all this pent-up aggression. It's not like they're playing every other night like the other sports. You get 1 week and your lifespan is less than 5 years. This is and you're one of the chosen few 1,700 in a fraternity that is second to none on this planet in terms of exposure and accolades. And, who's to tell us that we need this? I've always done it this way. Why do we have to do it this way now? So you have to almost browbeat these guys to get them to come on board with a lot of things that could happen in terms of how the game is restructured in the future.
That's exactly how my wife sounds to me during leading up to games. Sunday days.
There you go. See?
So let's talk then. Let's just bring it down to the end of it now. So the Steelers and Eagles are playing. Let's get some score predictions of the game this week. Tim, let's start with you. what do you think the prediction of give me your score prediction this week, Tim?
I'm going to say this just when there's doom and gloom in my heart. Always. The Steelers somehow reel me back in. And I got just this weird feeling. There's potential of, again, I saw last week of TJ Watt. You see him looking like a Marvel character. Some things he started to practice this week. I think glimpses are getting high. I think the Steelers are going to pull an upset this week. There's something in my gut. I think they're going to pull an upset this week. Well, and you know me, TJ. I will tell you, I think the Steelers may put up some points this week. When I say points, I think they may put up 24, which is pathetic. I think it's going to be 24-17.
24-17.
Interesting.
D-Gun, what do you think? What is your gut telling you?
I like his field of dreams. This Eagle team turns it on whenever they want to, but they also allow teams to get back into games. I think when the dust settles, the Eagles are going to win this game 27-17.
Okay, it's close. I'm hoping maybe they'll get food poisoning on Saturday night, and maybe. If you're on the crapper, you can't play football, Derrick.
Derrick, you also got to think. This is my brother picking. I think in the 2 years of this podcast, I believe the Steelers are undefeated in every one of his picks. So, anything that comes out of his mouth would not shock me right now. You did pick the Steelers to actually beat Buffalo and beat Buffalo soundly.
Me?
Yeah, how did that turn out?
Yeah, that was bad. That was really bad. It was bad. Now, me and Jesus, we've been talking, so I don't know, but I think he's a personal friend of mine.
I really had an X factor, Derrick. That's the X factor.
I do not think divine intervention will play into the outcome of this game.
I think the defense is going to be okay. I just don't trust our offense. If you're all, we lose to Miami 16-10. Yeah. If you hold a team to 16 points, you should win. In the NFL, you should win.
We're running a Mickey Mouse offense.
We are. I get you. So I'm going to say this. I don't think we're going to be a juggernaut. I'm going to say I think the Steelers are going to win. It's going to be crazy, though. It's going to be 17-10. And I think the Steelers' defense scores a touchdown. That's the only way it's going to happen.
I think both of you have had one too many Pamani brother sandwiches. I'm just saying. Just throwing it out there.
You guys had to give us something. There's too much happiness going on in Philadelphia right now.
I know. You guys get the World Series.
Look,
I mean,
I don't know what to tell you.
The Flyers look good too. The Flyers, they look good.
They're 4-2, 5-2 right now. I mean, nobody thought they would get off to that start.
But you know who? I mean, come on now. When that's all said and done, you know the Daddy's going to eventually come down and beat them, the Western Pennsylvania boys from Pittsburgh. So that I'm not worried about hockey. Just about
So Derrick, tell everybody about some of your podcast stuff. Tell them about your shows and stuff like that before we sign off in the Yinzer Bros.
Yeah, you can check me out Monday through Friday. I'm on noon to 3 Eastern time every day. I do a show called Sports Take with former Eagle Barrett Brooks and a well-known radio host in this area, Rob Ellis. All three of us used to work together at NBC Sports. We do the show for the Jacob Sports Media YouTube network. Noon to 3, we have great guests on every day. Just about every day. I also do a pre and post game Eagles show for the Jacob Sports Media Network with Seth Joyner, radio personality Mike Missinelli as well. And we do that from Ocean Casino in Atlantic City. And of course, my favorite is my podcast, which is doing really well, called Gun on One. You can see that also on the Jacob Sports Media YouTube channel and wherever else you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify. So I'm doing a little bit of everything. And of course, when I'm not doing that, I'm grandpa. So.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
I will say this, Derrick. I see a lot of you grilling. So when I come to visit my brother, I need to have, every time I see you grilling something or smoking something, I'm like, that looks like the most delicious thing I've ever seen in my life. So I'm going to need to partake in something of some type of meats or grilling that you're doing when I actually venture out there at some point to visit.
I would be happy to accommodate you, but here's the most depressing thing.
Doing
all these shows and picking up a grandson every day at 3:15 from daycare, preschool, babysitting him every day from 4:30, researching shows at night, and then doing shows the next day. I have 5 grills. I have a green egg smoker. I have a Traeger. I have a charbroil infrared gas grill. I have the Blackstone flat top grill 4-burner, and I have the standard Weber charcoal grill. I haven't grilled anything in almost 2 months.
Amazing.
It's depressing. It really is depressing because grilling was one of my outlets. I love to fish. I haven't done that. You know, I've been fishing 3 times this entire year.
What is your favorite grilling? What is your favorite grill to actually use? Out of curiosity.
My favorite grill would be the green egg. I love smoking ribs. Matter of fact, my wife, I don't know what it's going to taste like. I have no idea what it tastes like on a Traeger pellet grill because my wife just bought me this incredible Traeger grill for Father's Day. I've yet to open it. It's still sitting under cover on my patio deck. She keeps telling me, have you read the instructions yet on it? I said, I don't have time. And, you know, I know it says you're supposed to cure it X amount of hours before you actually use it. I've never turned it on. For all I know, it could be defective and it could be out of warranty when I can return it right now. I kid you not. It's sitting under this cover. And then once we start, and back in mid-July, my wife, my son-in-law, who I'm going to put a contract out on, one of my son-in-laws for my oldest daughter, we're sitting outside on the patio deck, and you know we have a fire pit out there, and we're roasting marshmallows. At that time, my patio deck was 9 feet wide and 31 feet long. So my son-in-law, being the smart aleck that he is, he goes, boy, it's really depressing having to sit single file to roast marshmallows on your patio deck. We'll just take 10 of us out there. So my wife had been bugging me for about 10 years to expand the patio deck, and I finally gave in. So now this thing is 18 feet wide and 31 feet long. And she had to have the pergola canopy on, so I had to pay that as well. So right now, I'm borderline food stamps because I put so much money into this patio deck. So if I smoke or grill anything, it would be probably cardboard paper at this time.
Unbelievable.
That's how bad it is, man. That's my story.
Unbelievable.
The struggle is real. The struggle is real.
You know.
Well,
so the two things I love to do, grilling and fishing, it's just a far-fetched notion in my life right now.
When you fish, do you keep the fish or do you grill the fish?
Most of the fish I catch, I release them because I'm really big into replenishing the population. I mean, I think a lot of times people overfish for the wrong reasons. And you know, I want to see a sport that a lot of people enjoy, family and entertainment, will sustain itself for years to come. There's some, like when I go striper bass fishing with my buddies on a charter, striper bass, my wife, as you know, TJ, my wife's an incredible cook, and she does these fish tacos that are out of this world. So when we go striper fishing, or either when a buddy of mine and gives us some, we'll do up the fish tacos and stuff like that. But for the most part, I'll turn them back in, except the 4 you see on my wall behind me here. As a matter of fact, one of them I caught right there in Lake Arthur, 30 minutes north of Pittsburgh, 2.5 pound crappie. Caught up in Lake Arthur. We caught like 30 of them something that day. I was fishing with a guy who knows that lake like Daniel Boone. His name was John Galida. Took me on the lake. We killed him. And other fish I've caught in California, caught at Lake Erie in Ohio, one at Crooked Creek in Ohio. So those days I will never get to live again, because, you know, once I got rid of kids, I thought my freedom was upon me, and all of a sudden they started having grandkids, and I'm thinking, you know, Lord, this ain't funny. I know God has a sense of humor, but I ain't laughing, man. I mean, it's taking away my joy, you know.
Your kids come back and they bring people with them. That's what they told me.
Yes. I'll tell you guys a quick story. Here's one of my favorite stories. I love to tell people how this. So this was in May of 2018. The last kid, our son, was out of the house. And one day, as my wife and I sitting on the couch, and we got these 2 little rodent dogs that we got, the rescue dogs, and we're sitting there, we're giggling like kids. And we're like, this is crazy. The house is quiet. We don't even have to go on one side of the entire house, top to bottom, to clean anymore. This is great. We're sitting there enjoying it. The phone rings. My pregnant daughter, who was living in Mexico, calls and says, hey, Mom, you know, Alex and I were just talking, and we decided we wanted the baby to be born in the United States, and Dad said we could come live with you. And I could hear them through the phone, and my wife's looking at me like, and I said, I remember telling them that. She goes, you never say no to these kids. Yeah. So my middle kid returns pregnant with a husband and a 75-pound gazelle that she found on the streets in Mexico that was borderline dead. Beautiful little puppy, looks like a lab and something else. I don't know what this dog is. Nursed it back to health and brought the dog with her. And then all of a sudden, a little more than a year ago, my son decided he needed to move back home. So 2 of the 3 kids are back home. So right now, I'm in the midst of living in a home with 5 adults, 3 dogs, and a 3-year-old demolition expert.
Derrick, I fully understand what a 3-year-old demolition expert is entailed, because that's every day of my life currently right now with my little daughter who's 3 years old, and you turned your head for 4 seconds and you think the Tasmanian devil has just hit a part of your house.
But it gets better, because when my oldest daughter decided she wanted to have kids, she just had her second kid in August, which was the second kid she had in 13 months. Now, lo and behold, she's on maternity leave. She's an RN. But with the first kid that was born in July of last year, my wife and I, at least once a week, had to help babysit overnight, keep the baby overnight. I thought my diaper changing and 4 a.m. bottle feedings were done.
So you're telling me
4 a.m.
So you're telling me this never gets, like, it never, even when they're gone, it never gets better, because everything comes back.
See, here's the problem. A lot of parents tell you, you know, when you turn 18, you're going to do this, this, and this, and you're going to be on your own. And it puts a little fear factor into some kids, and they get out and they get on their own. You know, we've always been the type of parents where, hey, if you ever need something, the door's always open. You always have a place to stay. I didn't know they would take it literally. Come back. And so I told my oldest daughter, who now has 2 kids and a stepson as well, I said, look, hon, you know I love you to death, but you and your husband Josh and the 3 kids, you ain't living here. So luckily they bought themselves a beautiful home. They have their own space, 4 acres of property. If anything, I said, look here, keep one of the rooms open. I may be living with you at this rate. So just keep that back bedroom open for Grandpa. Okay, please do that for me. So
that's right.
Oh yeah,
you need it. That's good. Well, thank you, Derrick, for being with us tonight. Once again, we're here. We're the Yinzer Bros. Don't forget, if you like what you hear, pass it along to all of your friends, your neighbors, your enemies, anybody. We want anybody to listen to the Yinzer Bros.
Anybody.
Again, we're on Apple, Spotify. We're on the lowest level podcast things you could find. We don't care. Just find it. Again,
But
We're
it,
the
it does
Yinzer
say
Bros.
International. Like there's underneath.
It is. We're an
fine
international
print.
podcast.
Fine print.
It is. We're an international podcast. We can't deny that. So hopefully, maybe we'll get another couple listeners just because Derrick's with us today. Derrick, we really appreciate it. Once again, we're the Yinzer Bros. Stay classy, Pittsburgh.
I think we're still number one out here.
We stink. That's the problem. See you guys.
Oh man, you guys have a good night.
You too.
Thanks, Derrick.
All right, no problem.
I forget how to shut this thing off. How do I shut this off? I don't even remember how to shut this off.
The whole thing didn't record. Appreciate it.
Oh, it recorded. Stop.